Samantha Markle unleashes shocking Dina bombshell. The whole truth finally revealed. And just when you thought the Markle family drama had squeezed out its last drop of scandal, Samantha didn't just knock on the door of Meghan's carefully curated empire, she kicked it wide open and whispered 3 letters that detonated across the internet like a royal grenade. DNA. Suddenly, the fairy tale narrative people thought they understood felt incomplete, like someone had ripped out a chapter and hidden it in a locked drawer. Because according to the claims laid out in the transcript, this isn't just another petty sibling feud, this is an allegation of a secret past, a possible hidden child, and a question that refuses to die no matter how aggressively it's dismissed. For years, the public story was polished to perfection. The American actress meets the prince, faces the storm, escapes the palace, reinvents herself in California. Clean, linear, inspirational. But Samantha's latest insinuations slice right through that timeline and suggest there may have been an entire life chapter erased before the royal romance ever began. Not confirmed, not documented, but implied, and sometimes implication is far more dangerous than accusation. Because once doubt is planted, it grows roots. The claim? A possible 30-year-old daughter. A whisper of Dina questions nobody powerful wants to entertain. A suggestion that Meghan's identity has been reinvented so many times that even those closest to her might struggle to define where performance ends and reality begins. Samantha didn't march out with paperwork. She didn't slam a birth certificate on a desk. But she did something much more strategic. She hinted. She nudged. She let the internet do what the internet does best. Obsess. And obsess, it did. Old interviews resurfaced like ghosts clawing out of digital graves. A throwaway comment from years ago about a prior marriage and child suddenly looked less like background noise and more like a breadcrumb trail. Was it nonsense? Was it confusion? Or was it the kind of accidental slip that only makes sense years later when the context changes? The transcript details how that old clip, once ignored, is now being dissected frame by frame. Tone, timing, word choice. Nothing is too small. That then came the supposed ghost groom theory, a man whose name trended overnight as amateur detectives attempted to construct a secret marriage narrative. Photos were stretched, enhanced, misidentified. Thumbnails screamed exposures. And then nothing. No license, no witnesses, no solid proof, a dead end. But here's the unsettling part. If it was a distraction, who benefited from it? Was it random chaos, or was it noise designed to keep eyes pointed in the wrong direction? Because the online spotlight didn't turn off, it pivoted. Instead of hunting for strangers, speculation shifted inward toward the Markle family itself. Suddenly, family resemblance became its own form of evidence. Old home videos were freeze-framed, facial features compared, smiles analyzed, theories multiplied. Not facts, theories. But in the court of public opinion, resemblance can spark more damage than documentation ever could. And through all of this, silence from Meghan. Silence that supporters call dignity and critics call strategy. Because when allegations swirl and the response is nothing, that vacuum fills with imagination. And imagination is relentless. Samantha, on the other hand, doesn't scream, she doesn't rant, she implies. She drops breadcrumbs and watches the algorithm amplify them. It's not explosive volume, it's surgical pressure. Then came the letter. Not an anonymous tweet, not a vague post. A physical letter that allegedly connects to Samantha and references unresolved family truth. Screenshots spread like wildfire. The authenticity debated. The handwriting analyzed. But the timing? Impeccable. Just as Meghan attempted to shift headlines toward a new lifestyle venture, the conversation snapped right back to dinner speculation. Strawberry jam launches? No. The internet wanted paternity drama. And here's where it gets even more intense. The brand. Meghan's image has always been hyper-controlled. Carefully lit interviews, strategic projects, empowerment narratives, reinvention arcs. But when someone challenges the origin story itself, it shakes the foundation. Because if even a fraction of Samantha's insinuation held weight, it wouldn't just be gossip, it would be narrative collapse. Critics argue it's a smear campaign driven by sibling resentment. Supporters argue it's a desperate attempt to stay relevant. But skeptics ask a different question. Why does this rumor refuse to die? Why does it resurface every time momentum builds? Why does every denial feel indirect and every silence feel deliberate? The transcript captures how this mystery feeds itself. Each unanswered question fuels 10 new ones. Each dismissal sparks another another deep dive. And somewhere between fact and fiction, a profitable enigma has formed. Books are written, commentators speculate, social media erupts, engagement skyrockets. Maybe there's nothing there. Maybe there never was, but maybe, just maybe, the power of this story isn't in proving a secret child exists. Maybe it's in proving how fragile a perfectly sculpted narrative can be when someone who shares your bloodline decides to challenge it. Because Samantha didn't need hard proof to cause impact. She needed timing. She needed curiosity. She needed 3 letters that imply science, legitimacy, and undeniable truth, DNA. And now the question isn't whether a rumor exists. The question is whether the silence can outlast it. This is the wildfire. Because what started as a whispered insinuation has now evolved into a full-blown identity war. And the real battleground isn't a courtroom. It's perception. Samantha Markle unleashes shocking DNA bombshell. The whole truth finally revealed. Wasn't just a headline, it became a psychological chess move. And the longer this story lingers, the more uncomfortable the questions become. Here's what makes this saga so volatile. It's not just about whether a secret daughter exists. It's about whether the public has ever truly known the woman at the center of it all. The transcript makes one thing crystal clear. Samantha's strategy isn't loud destruction. It's controlled destabilization. She doesn't claim, she suggests. She doesn't accuse, she alludes. And that subtlety, it's lethal in the age of viral speculation. Because the moment deny enters the conversation, people stop thinking emotionally and start thinking scientifically. Nah means receipts. Nah means proof. Nah means something that can't be PR managed into oblivion. Even if there is no test, even if there is no paperwork, just the mention of it reframes the entire debate. Suddenly, this isn't jealous sister drama. It's what if there's verifiable evidence somewhere, and that what if is the oxygen keeping this fire alive. That every time Meghan's team pivots toward empowerment campaigns, lifestyle launches, or carefully staged appearances, the algorithm pulls the conversation right back to the alleged missing chapter. The transcript outlines how even a supposed letter, vague, unconfirmed, yet perfectly timed, reignited the chaos. That timing wasn't accidental in the eyes of online detectives. It was interpreted as strategic disruption. And whether or not that's true almost doesn't matter, because the interpretation itself is what sticks. Let's talk about reinvention. Reinvention is powerful. Hollywood thrives on it. Royal life demands it. But reinvention also creates gaps, and gaps create curiosity. Samantha's insinuation that Meghan has reinvented herself multiple times doesn't just question authenticity, it invites people to examine every transformation under a microscope. Actress, philanthropist, duchess, podcaster, entrepreneur. Each chapter now scrutinized for what might have been edited out. And here's where it becomes psychological warfare. Silence has been Meghan's chosen shield. No direct rebuttal, no emotional press conference, no dramatic denial, just forward motion. To supporters, that reads as composure. To critics, it reads as evasion. And the longer that silence continues, the louder speculation becomes. Because humans are wired to fill in blanks. When there's no answer, the imagination writes one dad. Meanwhile, Samantha plays the long game. She doesn't flood the market with outrageous claims daily. She resurfaces at calculated intervals. A comment here, an implication there, enough to refresh the controversy without exhausting it. The transcript shows how even past dead-end theories, like the alleged ghost groom, added fuel rather than closure. Because when one theory collapses, conspiracy thinkers don't abandon the premise. They adjust it. And then there's the palace factor. Even though the alleged secret predates royal life, the monarchy's shadow looms over everything. Critics speculate that if something explosive did exist, powerful institutions would have every incentive to neutralize it early. Supporters counter that no such secret could survive modern investigative media. But the idea of buried stories tied to image protection is intoxicating to conspiracy culture. It's dramatic. It's cinematic. It feels like something out of a prestige drama, except this is real life. Or is it? That's the paradox. There is still no concrete proof, no document, no confirmed DNA test, no verified testimony. What exists is implication layered over historical family tension. And yet, the rumor refuses to evaporate. Because at its core, this isn't just about biology, it's about trust. If the public begins to suspect that even one major life detail was concealed, it reshapes everything else. Every speech about transparency, every interview about truth, every narrative about overcoming scrutiny. Doubt doesn't need evidence to exist, it only only needs plausibility. And here's the uncomfortable twist. Even if this allegation is entirely unfounded, the damage doesn't disappear automatically. Once a rumor reaches critical mass, it becomes part of the cultural conversation. Future projects will be evaluated through its lens. Future headlines will reference it as historical controversy. The shadow lingers whether the substance is real or not, but let's consider the alternative scenario for a moment, purely hypothetically. If there were a buried chapter, if there were a child whose existence was concealed decades ago, the revelation wouldn't just be tabloid fodder. It would trigger moral debates, legal questions, and an entirely new wave of scrutiny. The monarchy would be dragged back into the conversation. Media credibility would be questioned, and Samantha would go from controversial sibling to whistleblower overnight. That possibility, however remote, is what keeps viewers glued, because humans crave resolution. And this story has none. Instead, we have a stalemate. One sister implying hidden truths, one sister maintaining strategic silence, the internet oscillating between defense and attack, commentators monetizing mystery, audiences dissecting timelines like forensic accountants. And maybe that's the ultimate truth here. Maybe the real bombshell isn't DNA at all. Maybe it's the realization that modern celebrity narratives are so meticulously constructed that even a whisper of contradiction feels explosive. Samantha didn't just question a biological detail, she challenged the origin story itself. And origin stories are sacred in public life. They're the foundation of relatability, the bedrock of branding. So when that foundation trembles, even slightly, people lean in. Will there ever be definitive proof one way or another? Possibly not. The alleged order may exist only in rumor archives and YouTube thumbnails. The letter may remain ambiguous. The Dina insinuation may fade into the long list of royal adjacent conspiracies. But here's what won't fade: the doubt. Because doubt, once introduced, doesn't require confirmation to survive. It thrives on silence. It feeds on reinvention. It multiplies every time a timeline is questioned. Samantha Markle unleashes shocking DNA bombshell. The whole truth finally revealed. May never culminate in a lab report or televised confession, but it has already accomplished something powerful. It fractured certainty. And in the high-stakes arena of royalty, celebrity, and legacy, certainty is everything. So now the world waits not necessarily for proof, but for a crack in the silence. Because in this saga, the loudest statement might ultimately come from whoever decides to finally speak, or from the continued refusal to do so.